All right, thank you everybody, and we'll do another Zoom around the country a little bit later. Welcome to session 4 out of 16 of the Littlescribe Mini-Writing Festival. My name's Jo, for those of you who haven't met me yet today, and I'll be guiding you through all of the workshops throughout this week. We're really excited, the Littlescribe team, to bring these workshops to you, and our authors and illustrators are really proud to have the chance to zoom into your classrooms and talk to you a little bit about different writing styles, different ways of getting your message across to your audience, and different themes and concepts you can put into your writing. It's really a great opportunity for the authors and the illustrators and Littlescribe to talk to you, and we really hope that you enjoy the workshops and you get to take away some tips and tricks and advice to make your writing even better. I'm very excited today to welcome Thomas Mayer, and I'm going to introduce you to him in a minute. But first of all, I'm going to zoom across from Sydney to Perth to welcome James Foley, author and illustrator, who's joining us today. James tells me he has 4 new books out this year.
Yes.
We saw some of them earlier. So Chickensaurus and
Truffle Towers, book 2 and
Towers.
3. Chickensaurus.
2 and 3. Chickensaurus.
And the sequel to My Dead Bunny. It's called There's Something Weird About Lena.
Oh,
Yeah.
looks amazing. So check out James's books, and I'm sure you'll find some amazing illustrations and writing in those. So James will be drawing along as Thomas is talking to you this afternoon. So I keep saying this afternoon. Is it afternoon yet in WA, James?
Just. It's 12:03.
I can say good afternoon. Good. James has been up very early this morning. So watch out for James, because he'll be drawing and writing and kind of mapping out some of the things we'll talk about this afternoon. And sometimes it just helps to see some of these ideas in a visual way. So thank you, James, for joining us again.
Thanks for having us.
I would like to say a huge thank you and welcome to Thomas Mayer for joining us today all the way from Darwin. And I know we have a couple of Northern Territory schools involved, and hopefully they're part of the workshop this afternoon. Thomas is the author of Finding Our Heart and Finding the Heart of the Nation, and he's going to talk to you about that this afternoon, and about the Uluru Statement, and about some of the ways, even as young people, you can start to make a difference and take some actions towards walking together as a united nation. So I won't go too much into that yet, but welcome, Thomas, and thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Jo. Good to be here.
Now, before I hand over to Thomas, I just want to kind of start you all thinking about a couple of things. So we at Littlescribe really are passionate about giving kids an audience for your writing. So I want you to be thinking about, if anybody in the world could read your writing, who would that be? So it could be a family member, it could be friends, it could be teachers, it could be a favourite sports star or movie star, it could be an author, it could be a politician, it could be anybody. Who would you like to read your writing? And I just want you to have that in the back of your head, because part of your writing challenge today that Thomas will leave you in will be to write to a specific person about something that's really important to you. So I want you to be thinking about that. So let's get started, Thomas. Maybe you could start by telling people a little bit about yourself and who you are as a writer, and then we'll get into some of the details of your workshop.
Okay, thank you, Jo. Well, I'm coming to you all from Darwin, which is in the Northern Territory, and it's Larrakia land that I'm on. So the Larrakia people are the traditional owners of this place here, and they've been the people that look after this place for tens of thousands of years. And so I pay my respects to them people and their elders, past and present. They're old people that guide them still today. And yeah, so I have always lived here on Larrakia country, though I'm a Torres Strait Islander. So I was, my people are right at the top of Queensland, the islands in between Papua New Guinea and the tip of Cape York in Australia. So that's where my people come from. Also have been there for tens of thousands of years, and we still practice our culture, and it's something I'm very proud of. Yeah. As far as my work goes, yeah, I worked on the wharves for a long time. I was a wharfie, so the big cranes. If you've seen the big giraffe-looking cranes, they look like huge giraffes in the distance when they're not working, and they're what I used to drive before I became an author. And I became an author for the purpose of moving people. It's something that I never expected I would ever do in my lifetime, but I knew that it was a good way to teach people things and to try and convince them to do things that are important to my people and to Australia as a whole.
And we're going to delve into some of that this afternoon, Thomas, which is really exciting. Before we start though, I have been asking, and I'm going to continue to ask every author throughout the week, for 3 words that you like to use in your writing. And we're hoping then that all of the students watching can learn about the words that might be important to you, and then maybe challenge themselves to use those words in their own writing. So I know it might be a tough question, narrowing it down to 3 words, but if you had to choose 3 words that you love to use in your writing or you think are important to use in what you're writing about, what would those 3 words be?
Yeah, the first word I think is unity. And unity, just means working together. And it's a very important word for my time as a wharfie, because when I was a wharfie, we had what was called a union. So all of the workers, all of the other wharfies, we were all part of the same organisation where we came together to try and get better pay and better working conditions to improve our working lives. And so unity has been something very important from in them days when we were organising to try and get better pay and stuff, and also to help others in the community that needed help. And unity also now in my writing, because we're talking about making Australia a better place where Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that have been excluded in some ways, which I'll talk about later, are able to come together in a peaceful Australia where we're all working together in unity. The other word is voice. And voice, is one thing, you're talking, it's, but voice is important also in people hearing you. And when Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are talking about a voice, as we do in the Uluru statement that I'll talk about soon, we're talking about us having a voice, but more importantly, other people listening. And so voice is one part of, a voice needs people to listen. And so unity connects with voice, and I'll talk about that as well. And the other one is makarara. And makarara is a Yolngu word. The Yolngu people are in the Northern Territory and Northeast Arnhem Land, so to the east and on the coast of the Northern Territory. And makarara means a process. It's the process of coming together after a struggle. And it's a process where 2 people or 2 groups of people or 2 people that have wronged one or the other, have done something wrong or are arguing and don't agree. Makarara is the process of finding an agreement to then be very close to each other and be friends again. So those are 3 very important words that I use in my writing, and and are also in the Uluru Statement.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. So there are 3 words that we want you all to be listening out for as Thomas speaks this afternoon, and listening to the context, so the way he's using these words, and then after today, with the challenges that Thomas will leave you with, seeing how you can use those words in your own writing. And it may be a case of using the words in your writing. It may be a case of actually needing to do a little bit of research and having a bit more of an understanding about those words, especially with reference to what Thomas is going to talk about this afternoon. So unity, voice, and makarata. Okay, so Thomas, I'm going to start by asking you to talk a little bit about your book and about the Uluru Statement, and then lead into kind of your work as a writer and how you came to be a writer and be involved in the writing of the statement, and giving us some ideas and tips about what we can do and how we can implement some of those ideas into our own writing and our voice. So I'll hand over to you, Thomas.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I never expected to be a writer, kids. You know, it was, you know, not something I thought I would do. But here I have 2 books now that I've written. This one's a Finding Our Heart one. It's for children, a story about the Uluru Statement. And the first one that I wrote is Finding the Heart of the Nation. And it's quite a long book, lots of words, something I never thought I'd do. But when I was in school, I remember that I had in English classes in year 11, I remember this moment of realizing that writing is something that if you can feel something that you are writing about, then you can do a really good job. And though I didn't get good marks in the early days, once I figured that out, it became much easier, and I got good marks. I still didn't expect to write one day. I wanted to do outdoors work when I was young, and that's why I became a wharfie, working on the ships and on the wharf, loading the ships. And but then I became involved in Unity somewhat, you know, so organising and becoming a leader. And when I knew that something really important needed to be done, that's when I thought, well, I'll try and write like I did in school. And I found it much easier than I thought. You know, I'm in my 40s, so it was something like, 25 years or something since I had written. And but when you, like I said, when you really feel something in your heart and you practice writing it and you persevere, by persevere I mean you just keep trying, because you're not going to be good at it to begin with, just like anything else in life. So after many tries and many drafts, you can come up with something quite good. And I think these books are good because lots of people are buying them. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about the Uluru Statement? So some schools, some students would know a lot about it, but some might not. So can you give us a little bit of information about the Uluru Statement, why it's important to you, and what we can learn from it, all of us?
Yeah, so the Uluru Statement, when it was 13 big meetings all around the country, and I was invited to the one in Darwin. And what it was that if you haven't heard of the Constitution, kids, the Constitution is a very important rule book. It's a rule book that all Australians have to live by. So it's the highest law of the land. And it doesn't have all of the detail about the laws, but it says, it outlines how laws will be made in the country. So the politicians that make the laws in Canberra need to adhere to the Constitution as well. They need to do what it says. And so when the rule book of Australia was first made in 1901, so more than 120 years ago, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were not included in the rule book as people in this country. It was the same as when Captain Cook came to Australia a long time before that, ignored that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people existed, and said that there was no one here. The word terra nullius is what means, you know, this land is empty. But we all know, kids, don't we, that the land wasn't empty, that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were here all throughout this country, including the islands that my people came from. And so when the rule book was made, we were still being ignored. And so these meetings that I was part of around the country was Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people coming together to say how we wanted to change that. And all of those meetings elected or chose people to come together for one final big meeting in the heart of the country at a place called Uluru. And if you don't know Uluru, it's that big rock, you know, in the center of the country. It's in many ways, it's the heart of our nation. And so I was chosen to go to Uluru. And there was around close to 300 of us at Uluru. And after 3 more days of many talks and many debates or good discussion, you know, arguments and finding common ground, finding something that we all believed in, we invited all Australian people to accept what we said. And that's where this beautiful thing called the Uluru Statement came from. And the Uluru Statement says that we want voice, which we talked about, one of the words that I use a lot in my writing. So a voice meaning that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people would have a way of talking to the rest of the country, because there is no representative body, you know, that doesn't exist right now. We called for agreement making so that we can agree how we can live together going forward, and also truth telling. And the agreement making and truth telling was proposed as a makarata. And the makarata, the coming together after a struggle, a process of telling the truth and coming to an agreement on how we can live together. And so that's what happened at Uluru, and that's what the Uluru Statement is. And that is what the children's book is about as well.
So we might hand over to the students in their classrooms for a couple of minutes, Thomas. When you and I spoke last week, we talked about coming up with a list of actions, and about the Uluru Statement is about talking about the next step and what is the next step we can take. So what are your thoughts on us getting everyone to start to think and just take a couple of minutes just to brainstorm your first ideas about actions that you could take to start to change that rule book? Did you want to frame that a bit better than I have done, Thomas?
Yeah, actually, I think if we do 2 short exercises, if we have time, or maybe in the one go, when we talk about makarata and resolving our problems together, you know, when you have people that disagree, I want the children to first think about, when we're having an argument with someone, or if someone does something wrong to you and you disagree, how do we fix those problems? What do we learn about how we fix those problems, and how we can make peace with each other? And then I think after that, then let's think about what sort of actions we can do to help Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and the rest of Australia to be able to do that, you know? Do you think that makes sense? Yeah? So,
I think so.
brainstorm that, yeah, and think about how do we make peace with each other? What sort of things do we do to make peace with someone? So think about being honest, you know, truth telling. Think about all those sorts of things that we do.
Right, and if you want to type some of your ideas in the chat so we can see them, you can do that. So how do you make peace? How do we make peace with each other? And then the second thing you want them to think about, Thomas, is how can we help Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders and the rest of Australia to work together. So just a couple of minutes, start thinking about some of your ideas. There's no right or wrong answers here, just start thinking about some of your ideas around this. And how
I see some good stuff coming through on the chat already. Yeah, some great things.
Yeah, forgiveness, listening, put yourself in other people's shoes.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Respect. And Thomas, are these the sort of things you were talking about when you were meeting?
Yeah. A lot of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people want the truth to be known by everybody in this country about what happened when Captain Cook arrived, for example, and what happened after that. How Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were excluded from the rule books, and what that means to us today. You know, the problems that we have, and if we can make peace, then we believe we can fix those problems. So, yeah.
So we'll just give everyone about another minute to start thinking of your ideas, and this is something you can come back to afterwards. But just get down some of your initial ideas. Some great things we do. Having a discussion, accepting differences and equality.
Listen, that's very important. Yeah. Empathy is a great one.
Yeah, there's definitely lots of common themes coming here. Care, that's right, caring, trust. Admit when you're wrong.
Yeah, good one.
Okay, so some great ideas here, Thomas.
Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So have things started to change? What is the next step? What's next? What's the next action?
So to do all these great things that you guys have talked about, it's important to be able to establish a way to do that. Because when you think about Australia is made up of millions and millions of people, you know, so more than 20 million people in this country. And that's why there are politicians, right? That's why there's a government that we elect. So adults vote and choose our representatives to go to Canberra and meet with all the other representatives of all the people in the country, and they talk about how to do things in this country and make laws. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, we're only about 700,000 people. And so I want you to think about this though. In Australia, before Captain Cook arrived, everybody was Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. And so now there's only 700,000 of us. And so what we need to do is to give Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people the ability to also have representatives that are able to come together so that they can then have a voice, you see. If you think about this, if one of your schools was trying to make peace with another school, if all of the kids and the teachers at the school were talking at the same time at the other school, it would not be very good. You know, there'd be too many voices. You couldn't hear. Nobody would agree with each other, even from one school, because there's. But if you organise representatives, then you're able to have a proper discussion if you are a lot of people. And so the first thing is the voice and being able to establish that. And that's what we're asking the government to do. That's what the book means when it calls for a voice. It means we want you to recognise that that we should have a voice that can come together and talk to the rest of the country about how to fix our problems, because only we know how to fix our problems because we live with them every day. Yeah, so sorry if I went off on a tangent there, Joe.
No,
That makes sense.
Yeah, definitely, and it's really important, and it's important for all Australians to have that understanding and to work towards that. And knowing, I'm just thinking when you were talking about representatives, there isn't a school I've worked in that doesn't have some kind of student representative voice in a school.
Exactly.
So we do it at a school level. We need to do it at a country level. Absolutely.
Yeah, it gives the teachers a voice, the students a voice. That's right. Yeah, it's very important. And you know, I mean, also it's the fair thing to do, right? If the truth is that, so when people come together and have these sorts of discussions in a makarata, and they bring the truth together to the discussion, then you know you're going to be honest about, okay, we've done the wrong thing here. And then if you've got empathy, or if you put yourself in the other person's shoes, like you guys put together in your exercise there, then you're going to feel what the other person feels, and you're going to be more likely to be able to reach a peaceful agreement, you know, on how to fix things. And so that's really what my books are about, and what the Uluru Statement is about.
And again, when you and I chatted last week, we talked about setting a bigger challenge for students back in their classrooms after this workshop, and that was to write a letter for a specific person to read. Can you explain a bit about what you'd love everyone to do?
Yeah. So what we're doing is, this is actually a campaign. So a campaign is where a group of people, you know, with unity and to have a voice, are trying to change things. And so the government are the ones that can choose to give us a voice as we've asked for, and to choose to enter a process of makarata as we asked for, but they're not yet very convinced. And so what a very important action would be for kids and schools and families, your parents, to learn about the Uluru Statement and maybe practice your writing and write to the Prime Minister of the country and say, we really do want to listen to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and we think we should have their voice in the rule book of the nation. And that would be a very useful way to use writing.
Definitely, writing with purpose and writing about something you're passionate about, which is what you said you started with. And you don't even need to send your letter to the Prime Minister. By uploading it to the Story Starter wall and saying that that's who you'd like to read your writing, then we can tell the world that we want the Prime Minister to read that and take notice. Yeah. On that though, Thomas, can you talk a little bit about the importance of illustrations in your own writing, but also in policy documents that's written about and for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people?
Well, I think illustrations really they give life to words, you know, in the right settings, you know. The Uluru Statement and all of there's been many types of statements and petitions from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to try and move the decision makers, the prime ministers of this country. And every time, including this time for the Uluru Statement, the politicians have ignored us. And that's why we need to have your voices joined with ours to do it. But the Uluru Statement and all of the other petitions and statements, these types of things by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, we always use illustrations to help to show people what we're talking about. And so this is the Uluru Statement from the heart. And you'll see the Uluru Statement is a beautiful illustration, Aboriginal artwork by special law woman Anangu woman from Uluru. And this here that you can see is showing song lines, or the dreaming, if you've heard of the dreaming, about the very special place that is Uluru. And Uluru is here, where the Uluru Statement is printed. And all of these song lines coming from the north, east, south, and west. So you've got the mala, the rock wallaby. You've got liru, the poison snake, and kunia, the woma python. And you've also got the desert dingo dog. They come from the north, east, south, and west, these old stories that are thousands of years old, and they come together. They join up here at Uluru. And so we use this illustration, this beautiful artwork, to show that the Uluru Statement has lots of power, and it's the power of coming together. And so I think these types of things are really important. Also, in the first book, my daughter did this beautiful artwork here. And this is more in the Torres Strait Islander style of artwork. My daughter did this, and you can see Australia and big heart where in the centre where Uluru is. And so these artworks are also important to telling a story, more than just words. Yeah.
And you talked a little bit there as well on kind of telling the stories that of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that have been told for tens of thousands of years. We are running out of time, but can you kind of tell us a little bit from your point of view the importance of those stories and how why it is important to keep those stories alive?
Yeah, so we should be really proud of these stories as Australians, you know, that they come from this place that we all live, because these stories and the culture, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture, is the oldest in the world. It's tens of thousands of years older than the pyramids. It's way older than Stonehenge, and you know, it's said that we are the first people to bake bread in this country and to mill flour. So, you know, these are very, very ancient stories and things that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have done. And it should be something that we are very proud of as Australians. But the important thing that is missing from us being able to celebrate that is that we need to agree on how we can move forward together and make things right from what the truth of what's happened before. So, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Thomas. So we are leaving you then back in your classrooms with a lot to think about there. It might require a little bit of research if you don't know so much about the Uluru Statement, so that would definitely be a good place to start. Start talking to people in your community who might know a little bit about that, and talk to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in your community who have those stories and really understand the importance of that, everybody having a voice. So your two main challenges that we're going to leave you with. Number one is to write a list of the actions that you can take to start to change the rule book. So you've started thinking and telling us some of those ideas, but what could you do? What would be the next step? And the second one is to write a letter or a response or an opinion piece about how we can walk together in unity, and think about who your audience might be for that piece of writing. And that's the thing we'd really love you to share on the Story Starter wall. And teachers, there'll be more information over the next week to tell you about that, to give you a bit more information. There are also lots of the teaching resources based on what Thomas has been talking about in the Littlescribe platform, so refer to those as well. But Thomas, you've definitely given us food for thought this afternoon, and it's an important thing to be thinking about. It's important to have that understanding and to be really thinking about the fact that everybody does need a voice and deserves a voice, and we need to hear from everybody. So they're your two challenges. I'm really fascinated as well to think about, Thomas, that writing wasn't going to be what you do, and now you're an author. So I think that's a really important message as well. So as I mentioned at the start, when you're writing, if you're writing a response, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a letter, but you might just want to write about some of the things you've heard about, some of the things that what Thomas has been saying has made you think about, reflect on your own life and your own beliefs, but think about who would you like to read that writing. It might be a personal piece of writing you want to keep for yourself, but is it a piece of writing would you like to be voicing your opinion to politicians, and do you want to change the rule book, and what are the things that you could do to do that? I know Thomas will be reading your work and is excited to read what you have to say and to listen to your voice.